Hey, HR friends, welcome back. We're in the 3-7 emotional 6.5 day sequence, and we're going to talk about the last half day or the last 12 hours of the sequence. We're in day 6.5. And here's that last 12 hours right here. Okay. Now, as always, we start out by talking about the unseen polarity moments and why. Why do we do this? Well, first of all, we're emotional beings. This is a sentient space-time construct. And what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to work through our emotions in positive ways. Now, here's the difficulty with that. We're actually designed to be defensive or negative when it comes to our emotional awareness. Okay. So we have this defensive system of control, and when we get agitated, what happens is it's going to convince us to do one of two things: either run from our problems and ignore them, or stand up and fight for them in hurtful ways. Now, what we didn't know is this. Once we figured out this space-time construct, we were able to map out this electromagnetic pattern. And as this pattern elevates and goes down, what it's doing is it's activating and deactivating our defensive system of control. And it's literally controlling us not only as individuals, but the collective populations. Now, that's how, when we do these forecasts, that we can predict, for example, that weather was going to amplify. And you've seen that happen with Hurricane Debbie, that's now Tropical Storm Debbie again. That's all happening during this elevated moment of both mental and emotional polarity moments that hold and keep us at this agitated state. The other thing you've been noticing here during this sequence is the Israel-Hamas war is actually accelerating and getting even more aggressive than it was before. In addition, all of the stock market things that are happening around the world. And it's not a big coincidence here that when people's defensive systems of control are being activated, that they're going to sell and worry about their own stock or worry about how this is going to affect them. This is all predicted. Just like our genetics predict our individual states of disease, think of this electromagnetic pattern like the genetics of collective existence. And here's the cool thing. At the individual level, we know that if we make changes, if we change and make the correct choices, that we can actually minimize our genetic predisposition for diseases. That's exactly how this works. Okay. If we can get enough people to understand when these polarity moments are coming, when they're going to activate our defensive design, and we can work through our defensive system of control in positive cooperative ways instead of defensive and negative ways, we can start to change the future. You see, this pattern is the pattern of chaos. And if we let this pattern control us, what it does is it creates a negative future. If you understand this pattern and we show you how to, one, overcome it, and then two, show you the objective we're going to talk about here in just a second, what we need to do, we can change our future and create a positive future, a happy ending for all of us. First person, high alert. Why? So your first person polarity moments, what that's going to do is it's going to get you agitated with the people you see on a day-to-day basis. Don't you dare be fooled by this. If you let this pattern manipulate it, it's going to cause you to have all kinds of additional conflict with the people that you really don't want to have conflict with because you see them all the time. Now, that's different than third person agitations. Third person agitations are what's going to come when we switch into the 4-8, okay? Third person agitations have to do with the bigger picture, and every individual on this earth has a different opinion of what the bigger picture should be, and we end up fighting about it. Don't do that either. When we talk about objective, you'll see exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Then we can all agree on that. And once we do it, we can make all of this better. We can stop this negative progression, this downward spiral that we're in right now. We can actually minimize future damage, both at the society level, environment level, and climate catastrophes. We can bring them all back. But to do that, you have to care about this. Okay. And again, I say this all the time. You cannot stop this, okay? We are born into this simulated reality. This is a simulation. It's trying to test us to see if we can work through our emotions, if we can use our mental rhythms to balance our physical routines. And when we balance our routines, and only when we balance our routines, does it prove that we've actually achieved the objective. What do I mean? So, first of all, we're all born into this space time experience. We just didn't know it. And because we're born into this with a defensive system of control, what it's done is it's fooled all of our families, all the families that exist now, and all the families that ever came before them, to invest in defensive strategies that are going to help their family make sure that they have a leg up or they have an advantage in the future. Now, the more families and individuals that try to invest in a strategy where they're going to have a better future than everybody else, or they're going to have the advantage and everyone else isn't going to have that same advantage, What that does over time is it creates all this division and chaos in the larger level. That's exactly what's happened. We're all part of the same mathematical family. It doesn't matter if it's your direct family or if it's a family that lives on the other side of the earth of you. Every single member of the family is supposed to be cooperating, working together, and they're supposed to be working to do what? The biggest objective is to create equality and balance. So every member of the team, whether they're younger members figuring out how they fit into the team or they're older members and maybe they're more of a team leadership role, they should all be every day contributing to the family, to the individual, and to the national perspectives. And what do I mean contributing? I mean this. You better be contributing to not only help your family, but to help every family on the earth. You should not only be contributing to help yourself get better, but you make sure that what you invest in doesn't just help you, it helps every other individual just as equal as you, and the same thing at the national level. If you're going to invest in your nation, that's great. Take pride in your nation, but also understand that you have to respect and take pride in all the other nations that exist with us and give them a helping hand as well. We want all nations thriving, doing as best as they can. And when we do this, when we balance these smaller three, what we get is we get an interconnected, prosperous world, a peaceful world, a stable environment. That's what we're trying to do here. Now, that's what we have to do both as individuals and as a collective group of individuals in order to achieve this sentient space-time reality. This is a digital construct. It's just math. It's like we're in a video game, okay? Now we finally know what the rules are. We just didn't know what the rules were. That was the biggest problem. And we understand the rewards and the punishments. What do I mean? Okay, let's talk about that. So if you commit to your teammates, and by committing to your teammates, you don't just commit to the people in your life, you commit to all the people you don't know too, because we're all on the same team, okay? You commit to getting along with them. You commit to cooperating with them. You commit to encouraging them to balance their routines, and you balance your routines with them. Okay? It's that simple. Then, on the other side of this equation, that's half of the thing is getting along with them. Now, remember, these polarity moments, they're not going away. So it's going to be hard to get along with our teammates. It's meant to be hard. Okay? So part of this is the challenge is getting along with the team. Now, once we get along with our team, then we all have to be balancing these perspectives. Now, if we do these two things, this is how cool this is. Okay? In this sentient space-time reality, we are connected and created by these four governing frequencies. And these four colors that we have here are associated with the quadrants of your body. So as long as you're doing well with these teammates and as long as you're balancing your routines perfectly, the quadrants of your body will not experience aging and progression of disease. The more unbalanced you are with your teammates and the more unbalanced you are with your routines, the faster the quadrants of your body will be destroyed. Okay? Frequency is super easy to understand. You're either in it or you're out of it. Now, there can be very close to perfect, and you could be as far away as possible. So there's every variation in between. But to be healthy, extend life, and to reduce your likelihood and reverse disease states, you have to be in balance with these. Now, that's the immediate reward. Okay. That's why you should want to do this because it makes everything better. It eliminates your stress. It helps you stay younger. All those things are great, right? But the biggest reason you want to do this is the overall reward for completing this objective. All right. This is just a construct. Again, it's a test. We didn't know it, but now that you do know it, here's the reward. You get out of this negative feedback loop. And the next existence you have is like a heavenly existence. It's in a positive feedback loop, one where good things happen all the time instead of bad things happen all the time. Now, check it out. We disclose how this math works and we can definitively prove how this math works. And that's what we do when we do these 24-hour forecasts. And in this case, we're doing a 12-hour forecast because it's the end of the sequence. So let's get down there and show you what we're talking about. So when we zoom in, we're going to do the whole 24, but we're only going to talk about half of this. And we zoom this in because we really want you to see where these peaks and valleys are so that you can prepare for these moments. This is the unseen pattern of chaos, and we are trying to help you understand how to not let it manipulate you anymore. Now, find your time zone offset. You come down here, you sort through this. Once you find your offset, this holds for 10 seconds. And if you don't have good internet, then this is what you'd do. You'd find your offset, you'd screenshot this, and now you have it for the rest of the day. If you've got great internet, you go to our homepage, healthreconnected.com. We've got a live feed. There is a time bar that progresses through this sequence. Open it up. You will be blown away. Every single time you get defensive, every time someone around you is getting defensive, you're going to see that it's going through one of these up and down peaks here. Okay. And the higher the likelihood of conflict, higher these patterns are going to be pushing to the tops of these graphs. And we've got it color coded for you. We've got green, we've got yellow, and we've got red. And you can see what's going on here in this next 24-hour sequence. We're in the red. Okay. Now, this is what I was talking about up there as well. When we get to the metaphorical high tide, what's going to happen is this is going to drop off. First person's going to drop off to nothing, and look at the huge exchange. This is going to be a violent exchange. And this is relatively high. We're at the 4 level here. Look at where this one jumps to. So it drops from a 4 down to 0, and this one comes from a 0 up to a 6. This is going to be noticeable. And you're going to see that, like the weather events, when they become the most destructive, it's going to be during this sequence of time right here. Okay. And this isn't just going to go on for another 12 hours. We're going to do a 24-hour post here. This is going to go for another 2 or 3 days. All right. So expect things are going to be a little bit on the spicy side. All right, so we're done talking about electromagnetics because it couldn't be any higher alert than we're currently in. Now, in addition to having these electromagnetics, when we get to the end of an emotional sequence, what happens is an emotional and a physical rhythm, they're going to coincide or create an alignment. And that's what we're going to talk about next here are these alignments. Now, these alignments are going to be pretty long and they're going to be pretty strong. And just so you're aware, we are 24 being tested and observed by this pattern. It's just a frequency. It's overlooking us all the time. If we're out of balance with our teammates, if we're out of balance with our routine, we're taking damage to the quadrants of our body. Now, these are special moments in time when two frequencies come together, they amplify and they make it super simple for us to prove to you that you're in a mathematically dictated reality. How can we prove this? So imagine this, the time bar is going to be running through, and when the time bar gets to this first alignment, and the first one we're going to talk about here is this ME. It's going to happen for an hour and a half, and it's going to affect the upper quadrants of the body. Now, if the time bar comes through here and you start to get a headache, or you start to notice something in your body in these upper quadrants that doesn't feel well during this time, well, it's easy for us to point this out because one, this is a relatively strong alignment. The strongest are up here, the weakest are down here. And this is going to test the upper quadrants of the body. These are tougher. These are getting along with the older members of the team, the mothers, the fathers, the leaders of the team, being able to listen, being able to communicate, getting along with them. This is all about relationship with teammates. So if you're struggling getting along with the older generations or don't see why older generations are vitally important for the overall structure of what we're in here, then you're going to have problems with this alignment and you're going to feel something in these upper quadrants. All right. Now, the last two we're going to talk about are right on top of each other. They're both 3 hours long. Now, these are going to be a little bit easier to point out because they go for a longer amount of time. The shorter they are, it's kind of like it's just a small moment in time that you're going to say, oh, I kind of feel my headache, and then it went away an hour later. That's why that would happen. This one is going to be something where it's going to affect both the lower quadrant, the left lower quadrant of the body, and this side is going to affect the right upper quadrant of the body. Now, this side has to do with teammates. All right. So when we see orange colors or red colors, that has to do with the younger teammates. Those are the people that are maturing. So how well do you get along? How well do you communicate? How well do you cooperate with the younger members of the team? Now, whether you're an older member trying to get along with a younger member or you're a younger member trying to get along with other younger members, depending on how you do in those relationships is going to determine how much damage you're going to take to this left lower quadrant during this 3 hour alignment. The same thing over here. Now, this has to do with routines. This one's going to be big for people because a lot of people aren't balancing their routine at the national and the world level. And that's what this has to do with. These upper colors are national and world level. If you're not balancing your routine and making sure that what you contribute not only helps you, your family, and the individuals in your community, but every family and every individual around the world, the more out of balance you are, the more damage that's going to happen to you, and the more likely you're going to feel stuff up here. Now, these yellow and green colors are tough for us right now. And how can you be certain? Because look at our nations and look at our world. It's super out of balance, which means there's tons of people having problems with this going on up here. This is when you're going to have visual changes, hearing problems, memory issues, anything to do with any of the areas in these upper quadrants right here, musculoskeletal pain. And during the time that the time bar is going through this, that's when you're going to notice this the most. Now, in addition to this, our defensive nature is going to be activated. These are super high. And this is also going to make us very sensitive to these alignments. So important that you know this. All right, so testing sequence here, we're only going to this 12-hour sequence. I'll be back in the next 12 hours, and we're going to start here, and we're going to move 24 hours in advance. All right, so let's just quick look at what's happening down here in the quadrants. These are the four quadrants of the body, and you can see these little up and downs here are telling you how many frequencies are testing it at any given period of time. So as that time bar goes through here, you can see that it's a little bit less and then it's a little bit more. Now, left upper quadrant, not so much. Right upper quadrant, there's a lot going on there. Same thing here with the left lower quadrant. Much more going on there than in the right lower quadrants. What are these charts about? These show you where the strongest frequencies are. And because we're only doing 12 hours, we've only got 8 of them listed here total. Now, this is super simple to understand. If you get left-sided anything that goes on for the first 12 hours and holds for that 12 hours, okay? You know darn well it has to do with teammates. Why? Because it's only on the first person side that we have things going on the left side. Now, if you get right-sided discomfort during this next 12-hour sequence, then we know darn well that you're having trouble balancing your routine. There's no overlap here today. It's one or the other. So if you've got left-sided stuff, you got to work with your teammates both at the mature and immature level, and there's a lot more being tested at the immature level for teammates. Now, same thing over here. If you're having problems with your routine, this has to do with national and world up here. This has to do with individual and family down here. Much more likely that people are going to be experiencing stuff in this upper right quadrant. In fact, if I was still in practice, this is the place most people are going to be having trouble. All right, so now we're going to end this thing out, and what we've got here is we've got the rest of the electromagnetics for 2024. No more mystery, no more excuses. Every time the weather goes up, every time something big happens in the news, you're going to see that this pattern is dictating it, and what it's doing is it's actually leading us down the path of a negative ending. Now, the more of us that realize this, the more of us that overcome our defensive nature, the more of us that commit to our teams, the more of us that commit to balanced routines, the better off this is going to get for all of us. And even if the people around you don't choose to do it and you choose to do it, it slows your aging. It's going to minimize how much disease you endure. And if you commit to this, you get that positive feedback loop, and no one can stop you from doing that. That's how important it is to know how this math works. All right, that got longer than I would have liked it to have been today, but I'm excited. This is going to get better, and unfortunately, to make this better, we really needed to be able to show you how accurate these patterns are. And when you watch the news the next couple days, you're going to understand exactly what we're talking about here. All right, that's it. We'll see you in the next 12 hours.